What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Praise Podcast. My name is Eric. It is so good to be with you today for another exciting, fun-filled, just outstanding, glorious, gonna be awesome episode of the Praise Podcast. We are looking forward to hanging out with you during the next, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what kind of soapboxes and rants we get on, but it's going to be a good day. Of course, I'm not here alone. I'm not talking by myself. I'm not in a room all alone. No, I am joined by the Brooke Paninsky. She is in the house. Hello, Brooke.
Hi.
It's good to see
Those
you today.
intros never get old. I never know where you're going to go.
Neither do I.
Okay.
I hit record and I say, let's see what comes out. Let's see what comes out. But if you have listened to the Praise Podcast before, you know what's coming because I'm going to tell you to like, share, leave a rating and review. We always appreciate that. And, of course, this is a conversation, yes, between Brooke and I, but we want you to join in. Our last episode, several of you joined in, which we always want, ask for, and appreciate. You can join in the conversation by emailing Brooke at centralnow.com or Eric at centralnow.com. That's the best way to reach us. We would love to hear from you, hear your questions, hear your thoughts, hear what maybe sparks some new ideas, new ways of thinking in you, or maybe something that even if you disagreed with something, we want to hear that too. So you can do that. Again, Brooke at centralnow.com, Eric at centralnow.com. We want you to join in the conversation. We appreciate you all, the ways that you tune in each and every other week to the Praise Podcast. If you're new, welcome. By listening this far, you are officially part of the Praise Podcast family. So congratulations, you're in, you've made it. Your membership items will be in the mail. It includes a T-shirt, a signed picture from Brooke, and that's it. We're big Waterloo fans now too.
The fact that we've never once sent anything out.
Yeah, you're right. We're not sending you anything.
Or signed photographs.
We have nothing to send you. You're right. You're not getting anything other than our love and appreciation.
It's really funny.
Yeah, but Brooke, you are a Waterloo fan now.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know what Waterloo is, what is Waterloo? We are not sponsored by Waterloo either. So Waterloo, if you're listening, hit me up.
What is it? It's just this flavored carbonated water.
Yeah, it's sparkling water.
Sparkling water.
But it's delicious.
The only LaCroix I could get on was lemon. And not even just like the normal lemon. Like there's two kinds. You know what I'm talking about?
But then TikTok told me that LaCroix was going to give me cancer, so had to stop that. Which I
stopped
still don't
that.
understand because there's nothing in it.
And it's not any different than Waterloo.
So apparently whatever they were naturally essencing the water with.
That's so funny.
I don't know.
Everyone would just say drink normal water, which
that's true.
It's true.
Ugh.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was cherry limeade Waterloo.
Yeah.
It's
the
good.
best. It's just good.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Good.
It's just good. Well, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
How was California?
California was a ball and a half. It was so much fun. It was a lot of work, a lot of weird hours, like sleeping, resting, work. It was just a blur. But overall, it was just like a stellar week. It's always good to be home. It's always good to be there, but it's just good to be home too. So,
What was the best thing you ate?
The best thing I ate was for sure our final night after we after like the summit was just like completely done and over, and we were celebrating a job well done. Katie took us to this Italian restaurant, and she was giving us a hard time because the last time Maria and I were in California together, we were shopping on one of our afternoons off, and the place where we chose to eat was the Cheesecake Factory because we wanted cheesecake and we just wanted water because we were so thirsty. And Katie gave us a hard time about it because she's like, that's like not real Italian food. Like you need real good Italian food. So this restaurant she took us to was a genuine like Italian restaurant. It was beautiful and delicious, and it was just really cool. But that was probably like the best food that I had.
What did you eat there?
I don't know.
Was it pasta?
Of course, it was pasta. But I really don't know.
Was there red sauce on it or white sauce on it or buttery sauce?
It was kind of orange. It was like
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it was like a creamy Like, you know what I'm saying? How sometimes I'll do that at home. Like if I put like
a mild sauce. That's the only
I don't
orange
know
thing
what
I know.
it was, but all I remember saying was because I mean the menus were in Italian, like so you really
wow.
couldn't, yeah. And so I just asked the waiter like, "What's like the most popular thing that you sell?" Like, and I was like looking at the pasta, like portion of the
I
menu.
think you're supposed to get stuffed peppers in those
And
situations.
oh really? I would never do that.
I don't know.
No.
I just seen it's like an Italian thing. I think stuffed peppers.
No, I don't know. But there were some definitely like with that option. I think, but
Calamari too.
I love calamari. Yeah, that's delicious. But anyways, yeah, it was super
Do
fun.
you remember the name of this place?
No, I took a picture of it so I wouldn't forget. So I'd have to look it up on my phone. But it was just really awesome.
Was it maybe called Fazoli's?
It wasn't.
Oh,
it wasn't Fazoli's. Katie would have died. She would have been like, absolutely not. She like.
Do they have Fazoli's in California?
I have no idea. I don't know. They've got In-N-Out. I'll tell you that.
I don't know if there's anything that could make me sound more country bumpkin than like they got Fazoli's in California.
Oh my gosh.
They eat those breadsticks there.
You're so funny. Yeah, no, it was so good. But the food was always good. Like every meal we had was awesome, and it was just like for sure Californian food. Like you couldn't find anything what we ate like here. It just was not an option.
There was a slight scandal going on with Fazoli's there for a bit here in Mount Vernon.
Oh yeah, tell the people.
Yeah, they changed like the they changed their breadsticks
for like a day.
There was like a little stretch where somebody went rogue in the kitchen, and it was almost like they were trying to be Olive Garden breadsticks. Which, let's be honest, we're not going to Olive Garden for their breadsticks.
Right.
We go to Fazoli's for their breadsticks.
That's right.
And somebody went rogue, and it was traumatizing, honestly. Like there was a lot of scary moments where I thought, will I ever eat one of those Fazoli's breadsticks again? Like, is this the new Fazoli's breadstick?
Yeah.
I had a time of mourning, and I was scared. And then I waited a week, and I said, I need to know.
And you went back, and what was the verdict?
And then they were back to normal.
Oh, thank the Lord.
So clearly they fired someone. Whatever it was.
I remember that day you came back from lunch and you were like repulsed.
Yeah,
it
was frustrating.
Concerned.
Yeah, it was there's just certain things you shouldn't mess with, you know? Like that's one of them. Don't mess with that.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. Okay. Anyways.
Boy, we're off to a hot start.
We really are. Oh,
let's do a song spotlight. Let's salvage this podcast in the first 15 minutes.
I'll go first because we're talking about California, and the song that I chose was because during we were able to, just the way the schedule and the setup worked out, like we were able to sit in on the main sessions of the conference or the summit, and it wasn't until like the people, like all the attendees like left for like their breakouts or their cohort connections or things like that we like had to turn the room around or get ready for the next thing or get the meal ready or whatever. So we were able to sit on main session. And during each main session, there was typically like worship in a panel or like worship in a word or whatever. And so worship was just incredible. And this girl named Whitney, she led worship for us when I was attending the very first time. And I think she's done it for them every single time. And it's her and this time one other girl, and she had a keys player with her. So 3 people were their band. And it was just stellar. Just stellar. I mean, they're vocally like so gifted, sure, but like the anointing was just what made obviously the difference. The anointing is only ever what makes the difference, and they had it. And they sang a song by Brandon Lake, and it's House of Miracles. And I've heard the song before, but like never have I heard it like I heard it when I was there. And it's just been on just repeat. And honestly, I'm like, I need their version of it. Like it's so good, but it was so stripped and so simple. And when you listen to like Brandon's version, especially like one of the main ones he recorded, like you hear like kids singing on it, and it's a very like,
it's kind of creepy.
It kind of like tinkles at like the like the very beginning. It just not my vibe. But I mean, like the way that Whitney and her team did it, I was just like hearing the song for lyrically the first time, and was like, wow, this is good. And so I've just listened to it a lot. since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, House of Miracles. But I mean, just to think like it literally opens up. I mean, everyone's just settled in the spirit. And it's like she opens her mouth and says the words, "This is a house of worship. This is a place of praise where every demon trembles, where we proclaim your name." And then, I mean, I had my attention real fast, you know? So it was just really good. But yeah, that's my song spotlight. That's what I've had on repeat since the plane ride home. So
It's a good one.
what about you?
Mine is, so again, continuing on with my 2024 trend, trying to bring some songs by some people that maybe you haven't heard. So today's comes from the Worship Initiative and Writer's Well. And it is from an album they did called Psalms from the Well. Basically, it is a collection of people that came together to write a bunch of worship songs based on Psalms. And so they made a whole album on it. So this one was sent to me by Josh Robinson. And he was like, "Hey, you need to check out this song." And so I did. And I have listened to it a lot since he sent it to me. So it's based off of Psalm 95. So it's called Never Stop Singing. But I mean, the lyrics are basically Psalm 95. And then they just kind of turn it into a song. So, yeah, go read Psalm 95, and that's basically the lyrics.
That's great.
But,
those are the best kind of songs.
Yeah, you know. But, yeah, so it's called Never Stop Singing, Psalm 95. And I think part of the reason I like it, hold on, I'm going to pull it up here real quick, just because I can't remember the guy's name. Oh, boy. If I let this play too much, we're going to get copyrighted.
We always have to struggle with this, right?
Hold on. Okay, there's his name. So the guy that sings it is called John. His name is called John Mark Cole, is his name. But I kind of liked it because he's kind of got a Sean vibe to him, like his
Silly
voice,
Sean?
Silly Sean.
You
like,
love Silly Sean.
Yeah, Sean Curran. He's kind of got like that. The tone of his voice just has kind of that vibe, which
There you go.
I like.
Which you like.
I do. So,
Yep.
Never Stop Singing, Psalm 90, parentheses, Psalm 95 from Worship Initiative.
Yeah, like if I'm looking that up on YouTube or like Apple Music or whatever, it's
just
Worship Initiative.
Just if you type in Never Stop Singing, Psalm 95, it'll pop up.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's good. We'll listen to it after this.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. The whole album, actually, I've been listening to the whole album. Like I said, I mean, it's just a bunch of psalm.
And it's the album cover is just like very nice.
It's just green and gold.
I can get on board with this.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, you should listen to them.
Okay.
They're
got
good.
it. Great.
All right. So let's chat, Brooke.
So should we just like tell everybody how we got to this point?
Well, yeah. Let's
kind of, sort of.
So as per usual, okay, so as I said, if this is your first time listening and you've made it this far, congrats, buckle up. This is what happens. So if you've been listening for a long time, you know what it's like. But really, basically when Brooke and I come in here, like it's not really we don't say this as in like a like prideful bragging way of, oh, we just never know what we're doing and we just hit record and see what happens. But,
or I don't know, it sounds more arrogant.
yeah. It's really not. That's not why I say it. But I say it more of like when we talk about like we really come in here with conversation topics of conversations that we want to have or we are having, and so then we are just like, well, let's just talk it out. And record it, and then with our friends and let other people join in. So that's why I say all that to say. So we were kind of in between like a whole bunch of stuff of things that we could talk about today, and
because all of which are like relevant to like conversations that we're in right now, or like where we're at, like thoughts we have with the Lord, or like just different things on our mind. And so basically, kind of the theme that kept popping up in all of these different conversations, either we've had with each other or we've had with another group of people or whatever that we've been involved in or we've heard or we've read or whatever it is. Basically, the common thread that we kind of picked out of all of these conversations is basically what is our motives?
Like, what's your motive behind what you do?
Yeah. Should we talk about each thing?
Sure.
Sort of, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the first thing that kind of came up in conversation, and we're like, Alec, do you even open the can of worms? Because we really aren't about can of worms. But like, if you watch the Super Bowl, you know, like the conversations stirring around on social media and whatever about the like controversy that Christians have of like this commercial that, what is it called?
He gets us.
That he gets us, you know, what is it? Is it a movement? Is
Yeah,
it? Is
you
it
call,
like,
I mean,
I don't even
yeah,
know, platform,
it's
whatever.
yeah, I
don't even know what it is. But
basically, it's a. I guess you could call it an organization. I mean, it's a. Yeah, I mean, their goal, their mission is to basically present Jesus to people who maybe don't know Jesus or maybe have a skewed view of Jesus, and they specifically target large events, like a lot of times sporting events. Like they've done billboards during like the, you know, like behind home plate during like a World Series or like, you know, baseball. They'll put like a saying and then, you know, hashtag he gets us kind of thing, or their website, or, you know, they'll or they've done Super Bowl commercials is what has been the latest thing. But like they specifically target things that a lot of non-Christian people could be watching, basically.
Yeah. So they have this commercial in Super Bowl, and it's just like one of the main things everybody on social media is still talking about. And the conversation, it's just like there's so many things people are talking about, and stances that people have, and opinions people have, and perspectives people have, and, you know, all these stances they're taking and arguments that they're making and whatever. But then like we're just talking about like what's the point of like that was kind of the question of like, what's the point of even fighting about it? And it's like, can we just reel it in for just a second and like be someone who doesn't believe in the Lord? And like you're watching all these Christian people argue with them amongst themselves about what most honors and pleases the Lord. And it's kind of comical for a Christian who's not involved in that conversation for multiple reasons, but like to sit back and to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even focused on the commercial. I'm focused on the people, like you people, you know, and it's like, what does that reflect and what does that show? And like, it's just wild. And so then like that kind of is what we were talking about of like, what's even the point? Like, what's the motive behind like the posting and the arguing and the taking a stance? And like, not only like if someone is calmly and nicely or whatever, just saying something about it, like it's someone who's like intentionally going on that said Facebook post and asking questions and being like hateful or like just trying to stir up drama and gossip or whatever. And it's like, what's the point of that? You know, and as Christians, whether we agree or disagree or interpret certain things the same way or differently, whatever, I'm like that, like, what's the motive? And so then that got us talking about like, you know, other things right now. And like I said, it's conversations that like we're having with each other. It's stuff that we've heard and that, you know, it's kind of soaking in our spirit right now anyways, or that we're studying or whatever. And so then me being back from California, Eric was asking what my two main takeaways were. And one of the takeaways that I had for just different material that I heard or got to sit in on, the first one was really emphasizing on like, what's the motive behind being an influential/influencer when you're a Christian? Like, having a Christian, you know, being a Christian and then on social media being an influencer and like having this image or having these opportunities or coming across a way of someone who has a platform or who writes books or who launches podcasts or who, whatever it is you could be doing in like that kind of realm of social media. And as a Christian, like it kind of came back to the point of like what's your motive behind that? Like why do you want that? Or like why are you striving for that? Especially if you're not called to it, but it's a desire that you have. Or some people believe they're called to lead many and then think that, you know, this is the platform or the way to do that. And then it just gets there. I mean, there, you just see a lot of like things come of that, whether it be good or not so good. And so the question that they were just challenging these women with was like, what's your motive behind like wanting that or doing that? Or if that's where you're at, like, 'cause some of these people, like one girl, she was in like the last cohort, I think. Like she literally just wrote a book and launched it. And she has a very large social media following, and she does all this stuff. And it's just like, I mean, you see her post like, I feel like all the time on like my friends' like stories, because it's just like a branding that she has. And so again, just not saying that, like Chris Kane wasn't saying it's bad. She of all people having like 4 point whatever million followers understands like influencing culture, and via on social media. But she was coming back to the point of like, what's your motive, you know, and keeping you accountable to that and challenging you to be aware of your motives and to look into that. And so I thought that was just a really challenging thing to sit on for a minute of like, what's the point of like wanting to do anything, striving for anything, or like asking the Lord really like, have you called me? Yes or no? And then like, what do I want out of it? You know, what really is my posture? What really is my heart condition about any of this? Like, what am I really actually doing any of it for? And we can say, for you, God, you know, and then, but if we lack humility, that changes very quickly to be way more about us than it does about the Lord. And she was just challenging us to like reflect in that, right? And then yeah, and so just like stuff like that, you just think like, what's the motive? And that's kind of what had led to this conversation, because it kind of, I don't know, just it all tied in together. And there was even one more. I don't remember what the third one was. Do you?
Well, I think we were then, that led us to be like, you know, what basically even talking about just within the church.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
You know, like what,
Yes.
why, you know, what's the motive behind serving or wanting to serve in this specific spot?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like
Yeah.
what is just basically then even inside of a church community.
Yeah.
You know, like
So even like with us, and we go to a church called Central, we're on staff here, and we've got just over 2,000 people in person a weekend, and, you know, have an online, you know, we have online viewers. We have a you know, WSIL is our local television station. Like we have a ministry on. And so it's like, there's a lot of people with eyes on this ministry, and a lot of people with our jobs leading worship every weekend, like who know our name and who recognize our face, and like we're out in public, and people, I was literally on an airplane on my way home from Phoenix to St. Louis, and someone on the airplane was like, "Are you Maria?" Like asked Maria, and then like looks at me like, "Oh my gosh, you guys go to Central?" And it's like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? But all that to say, like that's the kind of like realm of ministry we're in right now in this season. And it's like, what's your motive? To serve. And to keep serving, whether that be us on staff or whether it be people who volunteer here, and are, you know, and it's just like, I'm interested in worship team. And my question being like, what's your motive? Why are you interested in worship team? You know, and not that that's bad, but I think it's good to like have the accountability, you know, of like, why am I even doing this? You know, and what's my posture, you know, when doing this? I literally feel like people, as they're listening, like get tense and cringe, because it's a conversation that it's like, are we really about to have this right now? And of course, there are things that like we might say or have said already that you like could read into far, far, far beyond ever intended.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's not the intention at all.
Right.
And nor do we. I mean, yes, we have a stance on this. I mean, as anyone, you know, should, but like, it's not we're not here to like with that kind of agenda either. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
So anyways, but that's how we got here.
Yeah.
What's your motive?
So, once we started talking about this, I was, you know, looking up stuff, researching stuff, whatever. And Proverbs 16:2, I think is a good one to start this with. And it says, Proverbs 16:2, all a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. And really, actually, the whole time you were talking there, it like started to pop in my mind of just like, I was asking myself the question, you know, like what are what are your motives? Like, why are we sitting in this room right now talking into these microphones?
Right.
You know, like what is the motive behind that? You know, like what, you know, why do I do the job that I do? You know, like what's the motive behind that? And like my first thing I thought was like, man, I don't know if I think about that enough.
Yeah.
You know, like
Exactly.
I don't know if that crosses my,
Yeah.
I don't know if it crosses my mind enough.
Right.
Of like, I mean, the why definitely does. Yeah, I mean, I think, but necessarily maybe the motive, you know, like the motive behind the why. I don't know how deep I really look into that all the time.
But see, that's what was so powerful about her asking that question.
Yeah.
Because so many of us don't think beyond just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say surface level like it's bad, but like, you know, that just initial, immediate way something is perceived or a decision that you make or whatever. But like
I mean, I
not
get
deeper than
and
that.
Because I was just thinking, like, for example, this podcast. You know, like when we started this podcast, I mean, clearly the goal wasn't for this to be some big blown up, you know, thing. It hasn't been that, you know, like, I mean, yes, people listen, but like we started it as really an outlet for us to kind of, sometimes we refer to it as our own therapy. And I think it like, but really like I believe one of our biggest motives behind starting it was just to for there to be a spot where we could really hash things out, really in a long form way, with just kind of really working things out, whether spiritually, whether leadership based, whether worship, whatever, just working these things out and giving other people the opportunity. Because if we're trying to work them out, odds are somebody else out there is probably also trying to work through the same problem, the same thought, the same issue, whatever you want to call it.
I remember one of the first things you said, like right when, like the birthing point of this podcast, like you were like, if we're having these conversations, like surely somebody else out there, you know, are having these conversations or have these questions or are talking or walking through similar things. And also when we started this podcast, we were brand new to this role, and our church was in like the most marking shift of leadership that it had seen in a very long time. And it gave it gave a way for the people we were leading to get to know who we were leading them, you know, and because Central's a larger church, and I mean, we have close relationships with like our volunteers or our immediate team and like all these things, but like you don't talk to 2,000 people on a Sunday, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so you're like, but you know, it's important. Like when you're in worship, like that's a vulnerable posture to take on, you know? And if you're someone who's new to church, especially like, or, you know, walking through a really hard thing, like if these two people plus their whole teams, like asking you to like, you know, go somewhere with them that you're not quite sure about. Like it's easier to do when you feel like you trust them or when you know them. And it was like the podcast seemed like a really good way for us to have these real conversations, to be like, listen, we're literally just two Christians who actually just get paid to do this in a way, you know, like to lead. But like, we just want to be as real and as transparent and as vulnerable as possible, and then give like our body the opportunity to like listen in on these conversations, to get to know us better. And honestly, just to gain some knowing and some trust there for me was a huge motive of just like, what's the point of putting this in my schedule, you know, once every 2 weeks, you know?
Well, and I think a good measure of motive is like how long you keep doing it in a way. Like what's your consistency with it? Because I feel confident saying that like the motives we started out doing this with are the same. Because it's not like we talked about, like, it's not like we don't make money off of this. Like we don't, you know, like we literally, like this does nothing really to like bring career gain to us or financial gain to us or really, you know what I mean? Like, it's not blown up. It's not like we have really the same group of people that listen every weekend, and we're really thankful to have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation and include those people in.
Yeah, I mean, like
and
really,
that's why we do it.
Yeah, like the gain is the people.
Yeah, like that. And so I
100%.
feel now going into like the third year of this and knowing that like, hey, this is like, again, like this is not some big national thing that we're doing and still doing it. And so I don't know, because I think about, you know, we both did. We spent a lot of time in ministry before we entered into like paid ministry.
Yeah.
And not that should be a prerequisite, but like I do think, like I was, again, as you were talking, I was thinking like, you know, would I still do the same things that I am doing today if the paycheck went away tomorrow? Now, granted, I mean, I'd have to find work somewhere, so I wouldn't be able to spend, you know,
80 hours a week here.
I mean, there are definitely things that would have to change. But I mean, like, you know, as far as just my commitment, my involvement, I'm obviously, there's really not, I don't want this to come off as like a braggy thing, but like, I don't remember the last Sunday that I was not in church somewhere. Like if I'm not here, then I'm probably visiting a church.
You and Adrian
somewhere.
always do that. Like
And
when you guys have weekends off, I usually get a text either Sunday afternoon or Monday mornings, and it's like your review of where you and Adrian went to church at. Yeah. Like when we're not here.
But I don't say that as in, but I say it as in like that's just a part, like
it's who you are.
I want to be in church.
Yeah. And
like whether if I can't be in my home church, which is here,
yeah,
you know, I want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's
so.
But I don't know. So I like as I'm live in front of people, trying to like think through, you know, really my own motives.
Yeah.
I can also think of many things that I probably have entered into with, for sure, the wrong motives, you know?
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say. Like, so then it poses the question, and I love that we're using the podcast for an example because we all like know what that is here. If you're listening, or obviously we're on it, but like, if we were having this conversation and we were like, there's a check in our spirit of like our motives have shifted, you know, and if we let the Lord show us that when we're reflecting and asking him, we say, point out any wicked way in me, right? Like we should never leave that posture. Like if you want to walk in humility, then you're always like, all right, Lord, refine me. And when we sit here and we say, okay, Lord, like have my motives changed in doing this ministry, whatever your ministry is, whatever it is for you, it's like, have my motives changed? And if he says yes, and if it's not for the better, then like, would you be willing to stop what you're doing and go back? Would you be willing to stop what you're doing and make an edit there? You know, would you be willing, if he said to let it go, you would cut it off and you would let it go? And that's the part of this conversation that's important for all of us to have and ask ourselves and ask the Lord, like, whatever it is that we're doing, whether it be like in your job or in your family and your relationships and ministries or ways that you know, share your time with others or spend your time, whatever it is, it's just like, ask him, what is my motive? And if he points out a way that it's not really pleasing to him, are you willing to make the change that you need to make for it to honor him, you know, and to be in a better posture than we were before, right? And so I think that's a huge part. Like, I love that you said, like, would I even be doing what I'm doing if, you know, if it wasn't paid? And then I also think about this, like, you were doing what you were doing in like the high school ministry, unpaid, you know, years ago, never, ever, ever having in your mind that you would be doing what you're doing right now. So again, motive there, I think that's a huge reason as to why the Lord trusted you with this job, because it was never a goal of yours to like climb some ministry ladder and lead all these people and be a face on a billboard and like, you know, that's bizarre. And it's just like,
I don't really like it, to be honest with you.
I know it's strange, but I think the humility there is why, the Lord trusts you, and it's why he trusts us and where he has us if we're humble, right? Like, I think there's really something to be said about that, because the temptation is always to make it about us, and then the temptation is to always want more. And it's not about us. And if we're content, we don't need to be worried about the more. We just need to be worried about the presence of God, right? Yeah. And stewarding that the best that we can.
Yeah. I think back to, so like, as I was thinking through, like, what are all the things that like I know that I just did not have good motives or like, or at the time, it maybe I thought that I had the right motives, but really just weren't. Like, I remember back when COVID hit, okay, and we were all, locked in our homes, whatever was going on there. I really think that time of COVID revealed a lot of like, oh man, like once everything really was stripped away, I learned what I was missing when it all went away. And I wasn't in the role that I'm in now at that time, but I was still in ministry, and I was still, doing music things, and I was still leading young adults and doing things like that. And I think that COVID helped really reshift my perspective on a lot of things, because what I missed about my job, the reality was like the God part of it was probably like not maybe in the top 5, just being real. I missed the, well, one, I like being around people. So, but like I missed people. I missed trips, being able to travel and go around and do those things. I missed, I guess you probably say, it wasn't a huge platform, but what platform I did have, I missed that. And so I think during COVID was a real shifting thing for me, as far as like, man, I really do need to check my motives, because now that it has all actually really been stripped away, and like what I was trying to get back to so badly, to me, really showed me where my motives lied, because like the things that I started doing were to try to get back some of those things that I was missing. And it wasn't necessarily that I was trying to get closer to God or do something for, but it was like, really, like, how can I gain back a platform while we're all stuck at home? Or what can I do to gain influence while we're all stuck at home, because I don't want to just sit, or also like hopefully, Lord willing, the only time where I have multiple weeks and months stretch of my life where I just can't really work or do anything. Like instead of really enjoying time being with, because Adrian was stuck at home too. My kids were stuck at home as well, like instead of really taking advantage of that, it was like, no, I want to get back to really being away. And so I don't know, that I think that was probably, COVID was the time where I think really God revealed a lot of unpure motives in me.
I love what the Lord did for a lot of people, myself included, during COVID. People hate COVID, and there's a lot about COVID I did not like, but I really, really loved the nearness of the Father during that time. I loved I don't even know the word for it, but he just did so much stripping and weeding out, and so much more. The shaking that happened in COVID was so necessary and so timely, and the Lord is in control, and he willed it to be. And I'm forever grateful for the work he did in me during COVID, and for a lot of the same reasons, because you were just like, the whole world's freaking out. And I'm just like, I can choose to freak out, or I can choose to take you for what you say. I can choose, like, I love this song, take you at your word. Like, I can choose to really actually fully buy into this and believe like the gospel to be true and true through and through. And it is. And I believe that. And so then I'm like, all right, then, like, there's a legitimacy that birthed in my faith that I had never had before because I didn't know I needed it before, And so I think COVID was a precious time for a lot of people, actually. And I'm thankful for that and for the growth that, of course, it showed in you. But it reminds me of, Christine Kane, her Instagram, she's got like 1.3 million followers at the moment. She has a global ministry. She travels more times than she is at home in a year. And she was on a Zoom call and she was saying how, like, again, challenging the people who are coming to Summit and being a part of Ecclesia just because it's Chris Kane. And also, side note, so funny because, like, the amount of people who don't know who she is like wildly hilarious to me because as a Christian, I'm like, no, she's the real deal. But then, like, you go and you talk to people even in our hometown, I'm like, oh, it's like a ministry Christine Kane's doing, and they have no idea who Christine Kane is. So that's just another side note, like, put a pin on that conversation. But she literally would say, like, some of these people who are applying to be a part of Ecclesia just want to do it because, like, I'm doing it. And just because, like, they think it's a, like a way to be best friends with Christine Kane or a way to, be led in all the, and it's just like, again, motives. And like people can see right through that. So then imagine the living God can see right through our motives. And she was just saying like, she's not it. She's like, I'm not the goal here. She's like, the goal is, and she would like list people like from all the way around the world that she knows, who nobody knows, who they don't even have a phone, let alone Instagram. And yet they're the ones who are up early in the morning or throughout the night on their face praying. They're the ones who are anointed to lay hands on people and they see them be healed. Like they're the ones who are giving money that no one would ever know about in order to save real people from real issues like human trafficking. And it's just like that's the real deal. When you talk about the Lord's eyes, what are your motives? Like the Lord sees right through any of the nonsense. And I would rather delete every social media platform I have and be known by absolutely nobody if it meant that my motives were pure in ministry and that like it was truly only ever for an audience of one. But we live in a culture where we don't really, that's not what we know how to, I don't, that's a bold statement, but we live in a culture where it's really hard for us to be mindful about the audience of one. Like, we don't know what that's like. We just don't. What does that even mean to only have the Lord as the person, like, we're, whose eyes are on us and that we really cares, like, his opinion's all I care about. Like every social media post I post, every phone call I have, every email I sent out, everything I've ever created, every project I've ever launched, every, book I've ever written and no one ever knows, every song I've ever written and instrument I've ever learned to play, like that nobody knows. And it's like, what for? And it's just like, you wouldn't know half the things that I like to do or can do. And why? Like, because what's the point of like, putting it out, with that, unless the Lord gives me permission, it's just like, what's the point? What's your motive? And I was talking to a new friend of mine that I met on this trip, and she's like the cool grandma who lives in Florida that I'm like, I really want to be like you when I grow up. Other than Carol Roldowski, I want to be her so bad when I grow up. She's the best, but
she's a great baker.
She's
if
the
you
best
end up being able to bake
baker.
Like her, then I would be.
I know. We really would be friends forever in that case.
Okay with that.
I know. So, anyways, but her name's Elizabeth, and she. We were just talking about like the cost of ministry and the cost of being misunderstood and the cost of genuine humility. And it's just like, if I get everything wrong in ministry in my life, the one thing I don't want to miss is the mark of a humble spirit, period. I don't ever want to that to me, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And am I always humble? Absolutely not. I can find out pride. I can identify pride in other people so well because I have it myself. Come on, you know what I mean? Like, that's just real talk. But it's like, if there's one thing a hill I'll die on, is that right there. It's just like, I would never intentionally sacrifice humility. Like, and so then I just wonder, okay, then like with that being said, Lord, what work can we do? Point out any wicked way in me. point out any wicked way in me. And yeah, it's just timely that the church reflects and asks the Lord these questions. Like, what is our motive? And would we be doing what we're doing if our congregation was 100 people every Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just like my mom-in-law, my father-in-law, my aunt, like they have this ministry, and it's just like there are 12 people there every Sunday. And you know what else is there? Who else is? The presence of God, the manifest presence of the Holy Spirit is there every Sunday. Why? Because the anointing. Why? Because the humility. Why? Because the invitation. Why? Because and it's just like, that's the church I know. And so it's like, okay, like if I can serve in the same way, which we've talked about this, I will serve just as enthusiastically as I do on the stage in front of 2,000 people every weekend, as I did the 12 that I led at that ministry every weekend, and I think if I'm ever in a position to lead 20,000 people in worship, you better believe that it's going to be the same way I do here, and the same way that I did there, and the same way that I did when I was 14 years old. And that's not, again, like we always go back to, it's not a pride thing. It's not an arrogance thing. It's just like the Lord has made very clear that humility is costly and to protect it, just to protect it. And like, I think there's a lot to be said about that, whether you work in ministry or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely something too, because I've seen it play out in my own life. Like, I think there is definitely, God is kind in helping us realize, I think, when our motives are wrong, because that's when we see whatever it is, not all the time, but generally it's probably not going to be successful if our motives are not in the right place. Like if our motives are off, or if they're, because like I think back to even it'd be 3 years ago now, like we wrote a whole bunch of songs, and those songs have sat there for almost now 3 years. And I really think that we're just now even scratching the surface of whether those are ever actually going to see the light of day or not. And I think the only reason that we're just now is because I think we're just now getting to a place where the heart and motive behind even writing them or even releasing them are in the right spot, And so I think that I think God is kind, that if we can discern enough, he will guard us from acting on wrong motives, because he's going to give us some opportunities, probably for failure in there, to realize like, hey, this is for me. Like, this is a selfish thing. This is my own thing. This is not, I'm not doing this with the right motives. And I mean, it says, oh boy, I shouldn't have backed myself into this corner. I think it's in Corinthians. I don't want to, hold on. Please hold.
Live Googling.
Please hold.
I love that.
Well, I just don't want to.
Well, while you're searching,
I'm not trying to be. I don't want to.
No, you're fine. While you're searching, and it's about that, and it's just really quick. But like, one of the things Christine Kane said was that she's not even on her own boards on any of the ministries that she leads, whether financially or like the logistical side of things, the law, the whatever. Like, she's not even on her own boards, because it's just like, you have to value that accountability too. And like talk about motives. And so then if you're in those situations to be making those decisions, like, she's not even on her own board. So it's like, she's just really, all the time, she says every day, I ask the Lord, like, I'm prayerful about what events I say yes to and what events I say no to. And like, and she literally say, what is my motive behind any of this? And da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like the daily reflection, that like, I mean, can you imagine the sphere of influence that she has? It's just like, you have to operate that way, which I really just made me appreciate her even more. Did you find it?
I did.
What is it?
1 Corinthians 4:5. It says, so don't make judgments about anyone ahead of time before the Lord returns, for he will bring our darkest secrets to light and will reveal our private motives. Then God will give to each one whatever praise is due. It's like he knows. I mean,
Wow.
we're silly if we don't think he knows. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just in denial, naive.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast a ton. But like, just I always, especially as the platform has grown, it becomes even more important to me to spend as much time with God, not on a platform.
Oh, yeah.
And like that is, I think, whether your platform is your family or whether your platform is 50,000 people, you know, like I think that's where we can get our motives right. Because time with him is going to tell us that's where he can reveal the darkness within us. He can reveal the false motives. That's where he can reveal vision and reveal plans and give proper insight and give proper ideas, give creativity. And so I think that's, I mean, it's like anything. It's just, it always comes back to time with him. And I think if we're trying to do all of this stuff for him and we look back and we go, boy, I can't remember the last time I've been in my Bible or even prayed. Probably,
just a check in your spirit, right?
Probably is an
like,
answer to the question of what are my motives.
So then it's like, okay, let's make that shift then. You know, and are we willing to shift when he says so? Yeah. I think that's a good conversation. And I'm glad that it's so open-ended still because we're just still walking it. It's very much our real life. Yeah. But the conversations we've had today.
It's a constant, it's just a constant checking.
It is.
I mean, it's a daily, because my motives today could be right. My motives tomorrow could be wrong. If I'm not constantly checking and asking for refining there and asking for, Here are some questions that I think are good that I found. That they are specific questions to help us evaluate our own motives.
Okay.
So for what it's worth, throw out another. So this is from gotquestions.org. That
sounds legit.
Yeah. But no, so this website, this is a really cool website actually. I use this a lot. So it's a Bible-based website, but like it's literally like it's like Google, but of the Bible. So you can literally just go in there, Google stuff, and it will give you like really just commentary, like scripture. It'll give you kind of some thoughts, whatever.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's so gotquestions.org. But if you have like, you know, if you're like me, I'm sure a lot of people are much smarter than I am, but I have a lot of questions.
We have so many questions.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, especially when it comes to God and faith, and I have a lot of questions. And so if you're like me...
See, it keeps you humble, boss.
Yeah, it's true. If only people knew how humble he keeps me.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so anyway, so that's gotquestions.org is a really good resource that I would recommend if you are, you know, looking for a place to start with some of your questions. But this was 8 questions that they said are good ways to help evaluate our own motives. So I'm going to give you these and then we'll wrap up. So Number 1, if no one ever knows what I am doing, giving, serving, sacrificing, would I still do it? We're not going to answer them all. I'm just going to give you these, okay? If there was no visible payoff for doing this, would I still do it? Number 3, this is a good one. Would I joyfully take a lesser position if God asked me to? 4, am I doing this for the praise of others or how it makes me feel? That's another good one.
Good questions.
That's another good one.
Wow.
5.
Okay, 5.
If I had to suffer for continuing what God has called me to do,
oh, come on,
would I continue?
Come on.
Number
Woo!
6. If others misunderstand or criticize my actions,
Oh my gosh.
will I stop? Number 7, if those whom I am serving never show gratitude or repay me in any way, will I still do it? And the last one, number 8, do I judge my success or failure based upon my faithfulness to what God has asked me to do or how I compare with others?
Wow. It makes me think of Noah. Not our Noah, but Noah in the Bible Noah, as in the one who built the ark. How in that time the people were so violent and so sinful and so yucky, and the Lord was literally just so fed up. And Noah was the only one who the Lord saw righteous. The only one. And I just think there's a lot to be said about that too. But like, I think about Noah when you ask those questions, especially the last one, like, or, you know, like, he, in a world of people who like just don't really get it maybe, or who are different than you, or you feel so misunderstood or so unseen or so maybe even alone in like the mission or the call. And it's just like, would you still contend? Would you still obey? Would you still be faithful to the point where you'd be the only one in the whole entire world who the Lord would trust an assignment with because you're the only one who he sees as righteous? It says a lot. Wow.
I think about a meeting. So I had a meeting earlier today with the rep who we do our TV stuff with. Was here. And she's a very nice lady. But, you know, I don't, through our conversations, like there is, you know, we obviously, because we're a church, so like we talk about like God and faith and things come up as we're talking about. I mean, like, you know, she's a marketing person, she's an advertising person. So like, you know, we're talking about those things, but in the context of God, you know. And it just struck me today because we're in the process of talking about new ideas, what, you know, kind of we've been doing WSIL for 4 years now. Like what's kind of the, you know, do we stay on this path? Are we, you know, what's kind of the next season for that ministry, et cetera. But it hit me today because she's like, I mean, she knows who God is. She, I would say, is probably not a like super active, you know, but like knows. I mean, again, we talk so, but like she says something. She goes, "Man, the world is just not a kind place." She's like, "It's just so like everybody is just unkind." Because what basically she was talking about, her dad is, she was telling us, "Hey, I don't normally bring my phone into meetings, but like my dad's on hospice, so if my phone rings and it's this number, like just giving you a heads up, like I'm gonna need to answer it, you know." Or like, of course, you know, whatever, you know, you should definitely do that, you know, like that's important. And you know, she says, "Well, I just always like to tell people because some, you know, it's like," and it was just like the thought that like her dad is in hospice dying. And because of the state of our world and really probably the unkindness that somebody along the way has showed her in that situation or in past situations, that like she feels the need to explain why she might answer her phone in the middle of I mean, it's not like we're big multi-billion-dollar tie-wearing executives here, you know? Like,
but even if we were, like,
and
wow.
It's just like, you know, for her to... I don't know. It just that has sat with me of just like how you know, and just for her to even then trigger that to like, it's just it's just so many people are so unkind, you know, and it's just like, man, that's disheartening in a way, you know, that like somebody. But it ended up being really cool. We got to pray with her and just like, I mean, it ended up being the advertising portion was a very small part of what we ended up getting, you know, to do. But
great.
But it was just, I don't know, that stuck with me, you know, of just, there's somebody that clearly is searching for something, and can recognize really how dark and deceitful and harsh the world is. And it's like all of this, because of our motives to be right or prove somebody wrong or to be the loudest in the room or to whatever, like right now she would not be able to go on social media and see that, like, oh, those Christians are kind. You know, like she wouldn't see that right now. We would just fall into another category of people that she would say, boy, this world is just full of unkind people. And that's disappointing. You know? And so it's like, we just don't, our motives matter, and we don't think enough about the consequences of our poor motives or our wrong motives and what that does for how that harms, hurts, sets back somebody who wants to know, like wants to find, you can tell it wants to find truth, wants to find real relationship, wants to have an encounter with somebody, searching for God, doesn't know that she can find it because of the motives behind how we portray ourselves sometimes. So it's just a reminder.
Yeah. Motives matter.
People are watching. They matter. And the opportunities are plenty if we're willing to set our agenda aside, set our motives aside. So
it's a word, Pastor. Preach it.
Pray that 1 Corinthians into us, that he's going to expose those motives. Just pray that I pray that when that time comes that I'm one that falls into a category that gets praised because of the motives that I had.
Wow. Mic drop. Accountability isn't fun, but it's necessary.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Good episode, boss.
How would you feel about praying for us to end this?
I would love to do that.
All right.
Yeah, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for the call to serve, the call to love well, the call to honor. God, I just ask that with every listener that we have on this podcast, Lord, that you reveal to them motives, and then not only do you reveal to them their motives, but you can help shape their motives to be honoring to you. God, I pray that you can help give some wisdom on how to make some changes if their motives don't honor you and aren't from you, God. I pray that you give us a love and a passion for your kingdom that we only ever want to humbly and purely serve and love others, to lead people to you. I ask, Lord, that you just you come and have a real encounter with these people, and you help them make real-time, real-life decisions and changes that really actually matter. God, you have the power to do it. We know that about you. We love that about you. And we trust that you will do great work in us, God. I ask that you increase our faith, that you point out any wicked way in us, that you refine us, Lord, that we may look and love and speak and act and be more like you every day. We love you, Lord, and we honor you. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, comments, you want to join in on this, you want to, this has spurred anything in your mind, again, help us out. Join in. As you can see, we're still working this out in our minds, and we'll probably be for the rest of our lives. So if you want to join in on that working out process, you can do that by emailing Eric@centralnow.com or Brooke@centralnow.com. We would love to just hear your thoughts, get your questions, and just have you tune in. So we appreciate you listening. You can share this podcast. That helps it get seen, heard by more people. If you know somebody that maybe you've been looking to start a conversation about motives, or maybe specifically their motives, use this podcast as will be the awkward conversation starter for you. You can start the conversation by sharing this podcast with you. Really, it just helps us get this message, the message of Jesus, out. That's our goal. That's what we want to happen. So you can do that. We appreciate y'all. We love you all. You're the best, as we always do and always say. Let's be people that in every day and every way bring the praise. We'll see you next time.